Αγαπητοί τηλεθεατές, καλησπέρα σας. Η εκπομπή ΟΜΟΓΕΝΕΙΑ ΕΔΩ ΛΟΝΔΙΝΟ για μια ακόμα Παρασκευή θα σας παρουσιάσει τις εκδηλώσεις της Ομογένειας του Λονδίνου. Για τους τηλεθεατές μας από το Ηνωμένο Βασίλειο, να σας ενημερώσουμε ότι μπορείτε να παρακολουθείτε το πρόγραμμά μας, αλλά και τις υπόλοιπες παραγωγές του Hellenic TV από το Rockbox, που μπορείτε να το προμηθευτείτε από τα γραφεία της CITA UK στο Southgate. Με αυτόν τον τρόπο μπορείτε να βλέπετε το Hellenic TV1 και ολόκληρη την πλατφόρμα του, που περιλαμβάνει 14 ελληνικά κανάλια από Ελλάδα και Κύπρο, νέες κινηματογραφικές παραγωγές, καθώς και να αποφεληθείτε από όλες τις υπηρεσίες που προσφέρει η CITA UK. Περισσότερες πληροφορίες σχετικά με τα προγράμματα του Hellenic TV μπορείτε να βρείτε στην ιστοσελίδα μας www.hellenictv.net, ενώ για τον τρόπο με τον οποίο μπορείτε να παρακολουθείτε ολόκληρη την πλατφόρμα του Hellenic TV στις τηλεοράσεις σας, στην ιστοσελίδα www.citauk.com. Για την προβολή των εκδηλώσεών σας και της επιχείρησής σας, επικοινωνήστε μαζί μας στο τηλέφωνο 020 8292 7037 ή στην ηλεκτρονική μας διεύθυνση info@hellenictv.net. Στο απόψινό μας πρόγραμμα θα σας παρουσιάσουμε την επίσκεψη του leader of the Liberal Democrats Nick Clegg με τη συνοδεία πολλών μελών του κόμματός του στο Κυπριακό Κοινοτικό Κέντρο, την εκδήλωση που διοργάνωσε το Ελληνικό Σχολείο του Kingsbury για τα 40 χρόνια της λειτουργίας του από τον Σύλλογο Κυπρίων Brenker Harrow και τέλος την εκδήλωση που διοργάνωσε το ΑΚΕΛ Μεγάλης Βρετανίας με αφορμή την εργατική Πρωτομαγιά. Ας περάσουμε στο πρώτο μας θέμα που έχει να κάνει με την επίσκεψη του αρχηγού των Liberal Democrats Nick Clegg, το κόμμα του οποίου είναι στη συγκυβέρνηση. Τον κύριο Clegg συνόδευσαν η Ευρωβουλευτής Baroness Sarah Ludford, η Βουλευτής Βορείου Λονδίνου Lynne Featherstone, καθώς και πολλά μέλη του κόμματος. Ο λόγος της επίσκεψης του κύριου Clegg ήταν να ενημερώσει τους συμπατριώτες μας για τις θέσεις του κόμματός του στις επερχόμενες Δημοτικές Εκλογές και Ευρωεκλογές. Θερμή υποδοχή επεφύλαξαν μέλη και φίλοι του κόμματός του, καθώς και διευθυντές του Κυπριακού Κοινοτικού Κέντρου, κυρία Σούζη Κωνσταντινίδη και κύριος Χριστόδουλος Στυλιανού. Ο κύριος Clegg, αμέσως μετά την είσοδό του, μίλησε με τους υπεύθυνους του Κοινοτικού Κέντρου, οι οποίοι έθεσαν ορισμένα θέματα προς συζήτηση και φωτογραφήθηκε με τους υποψήφιους του Βορείου Λονδίνου με το κόμμα του. Αμέσως μετά, ο κύριος Nick Clegg επισκέφτηκε την καφετέρια του Κοινοτικού Κέντρου και συνομίλησε με τους παρευρισκόμενους. Ας παρακολουθήσουμε το σχετικό βίντεο.
Which is the best dish here?
Sweet potato.
With wine. You have wine every lunch. What? You don't do wine. You love that. They're here for you.
Κύριε Παστόρ, δεν πάει εδώ. Πάντως, το αντίστοιχο μαρτυρία. Πρέπει να σ' άτομο.
Sweets are good too, aren't they?
Have you known each other for decades? I have to meet you for lunch. Apparently, I have an for a long time. So have a very good lunch.
Have a nice day. Have a good lunch. Bye.
Hello. Look it up. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Are you also? I was just asking.
Sorry?
Are you here for lunch? Sometimes. Yeah, is the lunch good? Yeah? Very good. And how often do you use the centre? Every day. Every day? Really?
I think they have a good time. It's like friends.
Have you known each other for a long time?
Oh, a long time.
Yeah?
Oh, it's someone who has a family.
It's a fantastic centre.
Change the ball.
Controversial.
Women home. That's a good thing. People say, oh, we'll get whatever, you know.
I don't think you're going to resolve this debate.
And you play cards and things, aren't you? Like,
Yes.
you play cards. Dominoes.
Should we come every single day? When do you normally come? When do you go home?
When you want to snooze. When you want to snooze.
Στην κάμερα του Hellenic TV μίλησε η βουλευτής των Liberal Democrats Lynne Featherstone, που συνόδευσε τον κύριο Nick Clegg και η Ευρωβουλευτής Baroness Sarah Ludford. Οι δύο πολιτικοί εκφράστηκαν με τα καλύτερα λόγια για την προσφορά του Κοινοτικού Κέντρου στην ΟΜΟΓΕΝΕΙΑ, καθώς και για το φιλόξενο κλίμα που λαμβάνουν σε κάθε τους επίσκεψη. Ας παρακολουθήσουμε τους δύο πολιτικούς.
Hi, I'm Lynne Featherstone. I'm the Liberal Democrat Member of Parliament for this area, for Hornsey and Wood Green. And I've come to the Cypriot Centre today because my leader, Nick Clegg, is coming to visit. This is an amazing centre. You know, Hornsey and Wood Green has so many communities, and this one is fantastic. What it does for many of the old people or people who can't get around, it's always the warmest of atmospheres in here. I love coming here. Soozi is amazing, always makes me feel welcome. And it's really important in a community like Hornsey and Wood Green that all the communities feel included and loved. And of course I'm here because we have local council elections, and as a Liberal Democrat we would like to take over Haringey Council. It's been Labour for over 40 years, and I think they've stopped listening to people. So I'm also here for the European elections, and our London Liberal Democrat member of the European Parliament, Sarah Ludford, is here too. She is an amazing MEP. We would be crazy to leave Europe. We are Europe. Europe means jobs, it means safety, security, and also we can chase criminals wherever they are. This is not a world where you should be isolationist. This is a world like Haringey where everyone needs to work together.
I'm Sarah Ludford. I'm Liberal Democrat member of the European Parliament for London and have been for the last 15 years, and I'm standing for re-election on May the 22nd, and I'm visiting here the Cypriot Community Centre where Nick Clegg and Lynne Featherstone are visiting at the same time. Lynne Featherstone being the local MP, Nick Clegg of course being the Deputy Prime Minister. And I mean, besides issues of local concern and London concern here, I hope we will also look at issues affecting Cyprus and European Union as a whole, and things like free movement of EU citizens, which Liberal Democrats are strongly supporting, and is probably of interest to people from Cyprus, because of course it's the right to come and work and have free exchange. And I'm also always taken an interest in the what happens on the island of Cyprus. I hope very much that the talks which have been launched are going to result in success, and so that we will have a Cyprus which is reunited with one sovereignty, however it's organised internally, and that Cyprus, can play really its full just and due role in the European Union. Liberal Democrats are strongly supportive of British membership of the European Union. We believe that is essential to keep up the number of jobs in the UK, because 4 million are linked to our trade with Europe, of which 500,000 in London are linked and supported by our EU membership. And so we are strongly opposing those Eurosceptics and Europhobes who would take us out of Europe. And we believe that for the sake of jobs and the economy, as well as cooperating to fight crime, to deal with environmental threats like air pollution, we have to have European cooperation. So we're the party of in Europe.
Την επίσκεψη του κύριου Clegg στο Κυπριακό Κοινοτικό Κέντρο κάλυψαν πολλά τηλεοπτικά δίκτυα και δημοσιογράφοι. Η κάμερα του Hellenic TV κατέγραψε 3 συνεντεύξεις από δημοσιογράφους που έθεσαν τις δικές τους ποικίλες ερωτήσεις.
First of all, Pfizer trying to take over AstraZeneca. Do you think that is a good deal for Britain?
Well, what we care about in the government is that any deal between two companies, which at the end of the day is a matter for them, should nonetheless secure excellence in British science, British research, the huge investments that we've made as a country in excelling in all of those areas, employing thousands of those people, is not only safeguarded but built on in the future. Now, Pfizer have made a number of assurances, but it's very, very important that if this were to proceed, that those kind of assurances really, really do stick. But at the end of the day, we're neutral as this government. We're not here to pick sides. Where we're not neutral, we have a very strong view, is that we want to see British science, British research and British jobs being properly protected.
You seem to have lost the protest vote but not gained any others. What are you going to do about that?
Actually, where we're out and about on people's doorsteps, telling our side of the story, we are securing and even gaining some support, because people, they recognise when they hear our side of the story that we have done very important things in national government, creating this economic recovery. There wouldn't be an economic recovery without the Liberal Democrats. We're doing it as fairly as possible, and that's why it's very important for people to know that in councils where Liberal Democrats are in control with a majority, we're the only party that is delivering a council tax freeze. No other party is doing that. So, you've got to do the difficult work, painstaking, unpopular though it might sometimes be, to repair the damage done to our economy. But the crucial thing is we're delivering fairer taxes up and down the country, both locally and nationally too.
You seem also to be portraying the party as one which will rein in the other two. I mean, that doesn't sound that inspirational.
I think it's really important that people know that we're able to do the heavy lifting to repair the damage done to the British economy, which Labour never would. And they've just got a record that speaks for itself of economic failure. And the Conservatives, I certainly know this, having been in coalition with them for 4 years, simply wouldn't look after people, particularly on middle and low incomes, in the way that we have, by delivering very significant tax cuts to people on middle and low incomes, by raising the point at which they start paying income tax.
Now, some of your MPs are predicting you might lose all of your MEPs. Are you convinced that voters are still listening to your message?
Look, I'm not a soothsayer or a pundit or a pollster. I'm a leader of a political party that is incredibly proud of what we're delivering locally. We're the only party where we're in control of local councils, delivering a council tax freeze to save people money. Nobody else is doing that. But also proud of what we've done nationally, which is, yes, we've courted some short-term unpopularity by entering into coalition, but in doing so we've secured economic recovery for millions and millions of people. That is really, really important, and if we get out there and tell our side of the story, I'm confident that people, whatever their other misgivings, will come and lend us their support in those areas where we can tell our side of the story.
And just finally, but further ahead, I mean, some of the activists I speak to are concerned. They did expect a drop in the polls because of unpopularity of being in coalition, but actually they were hoping it would have turned around by now. Are you confident that it will?
Do you know, I think nothing sort of changes in politics unless you put a lot of effort into it. We've got to tell people that it's the Liberal Democrats who are delivering fair taxes, nobody else. That it's Liberal Democrats who have delivered the largest cash increase in the state pension, nobody else. It's Liberal Democrats who are delivering the largest expansion in apprenticeships in a generation, nobody else. It's Liberal Democrats who are delivering more money to schools, educating children from the most disadvantaged families. When people get to hear what we've done in government, as well as fixing the terrible damage done to our economy by Labour, then people do give us their support. But you're right, we have our work cut out to explain our side of the story.
Nick, you took the gamble a couple of weeks ago to debate Europe with Nigel Farage, since which time his polls have gone up, yours have gone down. You may even come 5th place in the European elections. On what level could you say that that was a success?
I have this old-fashioned view that you don't win an argument unless you're prepared to have an argument. Ed Miliband is saying nothing about the big issues of the day. He's sort of missing in action. David Cameron won't really take the fight to UKIP because he's worried about splits in his own party. It's only the Liberal Democrats who are saying, look, whatever your views about whether you like this decision or that decision in the European Union, we've got to remain part of the world's largest economy. And I'm not going to sort of just, vacate the field of battle because it's convenient to do so. Someone has to stand up for British jobs, and that's at the end of the day what's at stake here.
You fundamentally misjudged the mood of the British people there, haven't you? Because you look at any polls, the British people are not pro-Europe, they're anti-Europe, and that's why UKIP are doing so well and you're doing so badly.
I'm not interested in fleeting moods or polls. What I'm interested in is what I think is right for the British economy and for British society in the long run. And when you've got millions of jobs that are in one way or another linked to our status within what is the world's largest economy, I think it is really irresponsible. It's a dangerous fantasy for Nigel Farage to pretend that somehow it's a patriotic thing to do to leave the European Union, when I think it's a deeply unpatriotic thing to do because it would lead to more joblessness. And I certainly think it's right the Liberal Democrats are taking the lead in that debate, however much it might be that we're expressing views that some people don't agree with, because Ed Miliband and David Cameron are basically missing in action, have decided not to have this debate at all.
You may well end up after the European elections with next to no MEPs. You may come 5th behind the Green Party. What is it that you're doing wrong? Because you're doing something quite majorly wrong, aren't you?
Look, I'm not a pundit or a soothsayer or a pollster. I'm a leader of a party that alone in British politics has
Which is a party that's going downhill in the polls.
Alone in British politics has got the guts to say that for Britain to be the great country that I know it is, we've got to remain open and not simply sort of pull the drawbridge up and cower in a corner. Now, Nigel Farage can go around telling everybody that every problem under the sun will be solved by pulling us out of the European Union. I know that that is simply not true. The fact that Ed Miliband and David Cameron aren't prepared to have the courage, to pluck up the courage to actually make that big argument, well, they can answer for themselves. I'm certainly going to carry on making an argument. Why? Because I think what's at stake is British jobs, jobs and jobs. And I don't think an increase in unemployment is a price worth paying for Nigel Farage's populism or for the failure of Ed Miliband and David Cameron to actually exercise some leadership.
Fine to say that at the moment though, but what happens if you end up with next to no MEPs? What happens if your number of councillors goes even lower than it is at the moment? What do you say to your party then? Because you're a year away from a general election, exactly a year away tomorrow. Are you the problem?
You keep asking me about what's going to happen in elections which haven't occurred yet. I'm here to
you look at the polls, and the polls are quite accurate, and you're about 8 or 9%.
Yeah, I've been in politics long enough to know that people go up and down in politics, polls go up and down.
And yours have been very low for a very long time.
What I'm here for, what my party is here for, is firstly to emphasise that without the Liberal Democrats there would be no economic recovery. Secondly, in the local elections, we're the only party where we're in control, a majority control of councils, delivering a council tax free. No other party is. And on Europe, we are the party of in. Now, I understand there are some people who don't like that, who think we should pull out, who that we should simply say that we don't want to have anything to do with the rest of the world. It's not what I believe in, it's not what Liberal Democrats believe in, and just because it's not universally popular does not mean that we're going to stop saying what we believe in.
Let's look at the locals then, because in places like Liverpool and the big cities, you used to boast about the fact you used to run those councils. I checked this morning, you've got 7 councillors in Liverpool now. Labour have got 74. You're not very popular, you're not doing enough to get those people back. So what is it you're going to do to try and get those big cities, the places you used to run, what are you going to do to get them back?
Well, what we are doing is that when showing people, when there's not much money around, when everybody knows, families, communities up and down the country, having been through this very difficult time over the last several years, that every penny counts, it's really important that we spend people's money wisely. That's why we're the only party where we're in majority control of councils delivering a council tax freeze. 45 Conservative councils have put council tax up. 49 Labour councils have put council tax up. We're the only party where we're in control to say, do you know what? We're going to look after your money. We're not going to waste it. We're not going to spend it on gimmicks or vanity projects as Labour and Conservative councils have done. If we make that case, get out on the doorstep and explain how we are not only protecting frontline public services, but also looking after people's money when money is tight, I believe people, where we can get that message across, will support us.
Final question. If you do as badly as many people think, and I take your point, you're not a pollster, but the polls are not looking very good at the moment. If you do badly, we have a year to go to a general election. At what point do you say, you know what, I've had enough, my time's up?
Far from having had enough, just at the time when the economy is turning, I think it's really important that I show, as leader of the Liberal Democrats, that the economic recovery wouldn't be happening without the Liberal Democrats. More than that, it wouldn't be happening in the way that it's now occurring. There are millions of people in this country who are going to be £800 better off because we've raised the point at which you start paying income tax. People on middle and low incomes who've only benefited, will only benefit, because the Liberal Democrats are in government. And far from somehow wanting to turn my back on that record, I'm very proud of it, and I'm going to carry on advertising, advocating what we've done, both nationally and locally too.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you very much indeed.
Ed Miliband said the government is cheerleading this deal. Do you agree with that?
No, of course not. The government is neutral. We're not going to pick one company or another, one side or another. But where we're not neutral, where we're very strongly used, is we want to see that the world-beating science base and research sector in this country protected. We want to see the jobs in the science and research sectors properly safeguarded. That is what we care about, and that's where we do have a duty to the country as a whole. Whilst of course it's not for us to decide what private companies do in their interactions with each other, we have a very strong public interest in ensuring that research and science is protected, not undermined in Great Britain now and in the future.
Do you agree there should be a public interest test?
Well, there are a number of tests which exist already in law, but crucially, the government, and especially as government, we have ring-fenced, protected science funding, for instance, in a way that previous governments have not, even as we've had to make savings elsewhere. We've put our money where our mouth is, that we care enormously about protecting, funding and safeguarding the science base of our country, because it's so important to the long-term success of our economy.
A year to go to the elections, general elections. The majority of people are likely to vote either for the Conservatives or for Labour. Why should there be Liberal Democrats in government?
Because without Liberal Democrats in government, we won't finish the job of economic recovery and finish it fairly. We all know that the Labour Party has got an appalling record when it comes to the economy. They crashed it in the first place, they still haven't apologised for it. We also all know that the Conservative Party, left to their own devices, simply won't hardwire fairness into our approach to the economy in the way that we have insisted on in government. So for instance, the flagship tax policy, which means that millions upon millions of people on low and middle incomes in this country will be £800 better off because they won't be paying income tax on the first £10,500 they earn come the next general election, has only been delivered because of Liberal Democrats in government. So if you want us to finish the job of fixing the economy, but finish it fairly, the only way to do that is to have Liberal Democrats sitting around the cabinet table.
And if you're around the cabinet table with the Labour government, would you consider getting rid of the spare room subsidy as they want? That would be, they consider that to be fair, unfair.
Well, look, my policy has set out our stall very clearly on the spare bedroom subsidies, that we need to do something about overcrowding in the socially rented sector, but where there's absolutely no alternative for someone to move, to downsize, if you like, to a smaller property, we should rethink the provisions as applied to them. But more generally, if the Liberal Democrats were able to find ourselves in coalition with the Labour Party, one thing I can guarantee is that the Liberal Democrats around that cabinet table would insist that the Labour Party don't repeat the mistakes of the past and break the bank by spending money that we don't have and borrowing money that we shouldn't. That is an absolute guarantee of not only economic probity of the Liberal Democrats, but also, in exactly the same way, we're serving as a guarantee in this coalition of a commitment to fairness which wouldn't be delivered by the Conservatives on their own.
Thank you very much.